Hey, this is Lyle Dodge with Azure in the Enterprise. Today we have Alexander Lawrence with us from Sysdig. Hey, how you doing?
Great. How you doing, Lyle?
Good. So we spun up an Arrow 4.3 cluster, and we're actually going to walk through putting some of the Sysdig tools into it. So after a little intro, we'll actually get to it. All right, so this will be a fairly straightforward video. So we're just going to flip over to your screen and have some fun with Sysdig's tools running in Azure Red Hat OpenShift 4.3.
All right, great. I'll just get right to it. So what we have here is the cluster interface over the CLI, and we've got Sysdig over here on the right. I'm going to go ahead and remove the agent that I installed earlier so that we can go ahead and reinstall it. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the labels that we stuck on the nodes. And let's go ahead and make sure the namespace is gone. All right. While that's going, we're going to come over here and we're going to grab our little install script. So we'll grab the OpenShift variant and just copy that down, paste it over here in our terminal, and go ahead and hit go. So now we're grabbing our YAMLs.
So to note here, you're actually just hitting, it's just the generic OpenShift. So I think that's important to call out here. When we designed Azure Red Hat OpenShift 4.3, we said with the prior version of ARO based on 3.11, we kind of made it easy for customers. We took away a lot of the control. With ARO 4.3, we basically said the going forward premise is if you used to have to run OpenShift 4.3 on-prem or on a VM because you wanted cluster admin privileged containers, you should be able to do that with ARO. So, like this, you can just pretty much run anything that's pointed towards OpenShift and be fine.
Yep, exactly. And so up here, everything's just doing standard OpenShift interfaces. You can see we have all of our agents now up across our various masters and our nodes. So I'm going to go ahead and kill that watch there. And if I come over here into Sysdig, we can go back to our onboarding doc. We can see various things that we can set up out of the gate, help walk you through. But what I really wanted to focus on today is kind of things around Kubernetes Health and application troubleshooting, because those are things that you can do in OpenShift, and we help enhance those things, make them a little bit easier, a little more detailed oriented in terms of how you go through that process. So if I come over here into this Sysdig monitor view, we can see here I'm in an overview page. We've got a top-level cluster up here, so we can see we've got our Sysdig ARO 4.3 cluster. We can see we have all of our nodes ready. We've got most of our pods running. CPU and memory look pretty okay. Got some compliance work we should probably be doing over here as well for our Kubernetes environment. But if I go ahead and zoom in to my namespaces, I can actually get an idea of what's going on in each of my namespaces. So I've got a couple different apps running in here, some stuff in Go, a voting application, a Java app. I can see in my Java app, I've only got about 92% of my desired pods running that should be there. So I can tell there's something in here that's probably restarting. I've gone way over my memory requests. So my memory limits are being far exceeded, and I am having pretty good CPU utilization overall. And so you can see over there, I've got some stuff going on with that I might want to investigate further. So if I come over here to this little arrow, I can actually zoom into the workloads that are inside of this namespace, and I can get an idea of what's going on application-wise. So I can see here that this Java app is probably the source of most of my grief. Cassandra looks okay, Mongo looks okay, Redis looks fine, but this application itself is definitely having some issues in terms of its pod availability, right? We're like getting 75% of them running, even though there's 2. So that tells us that we probably have a crash loop going on in this this desired app, and we can kind of take a little bit more of a look at that by going into this Kubernetes deployment overview. This will pull up a view for us that gets right into kind of the meat of the details about this deployment. So again, I can see I've got one pod that's probably restarting, so about something going on in terms of some sort of utilization, some reason why it's restarting. If I come down here, I can see that I probably have something going on with CPU core limits hitting. So I'm probably exceeding some sort of CPU workload I've set in place in that namespace. something I can go look into, kind of diagnose why that might be going on, why that's happening, things like that. Can look into more details about memory utilization, CPU cores, network traffic, all the and sundry details that have to deal with that deployment itself. Conversely, if this were causing me grief in one way or another, and I wanted to know more about the componentry of the application, I could take this and I can kind of enhance my view to be looking at something that's enriched by Kubernetes tags and metadata coming from OpenShift. I can then isolate myself down to just the namespace in question, so we can go to that Java app. And I can flip that view to go look into something like a topological perspective. So here I can actually pull up the response times of the application itself. And so if I keep zooming in here, I have my cluster, I've got my namespace. I can zoom in to the deployments inside of that namespace, and I can keep pushing into the deployments. I can get down to the individual pods, and I can even go further into those pods and get more detail therein. Right now, you can see there's a bunch of different pods showing. So we know there's been a crash loop. We know that they're restarting like mad. Let's go ahead and look at the last minute of that instead, and we can see what the application is looking like roughly right now. And I can see I've just got the 2 pods there. If I zoom into one of those pods, I can get down to the individual processes running inside the container within that pod. So I can see there's an Nginx process, a Tomcat process. If I wanted to go get more details on those processes, I can change my view again, and I can go look into something like HTTP metrics. And I can see, am I having issues within that HTTP engine? Am I having endpoints that are going slow? Am I shooting out a bunch of status codes from the different HTTP engines? Those don't look too terribly bad, so maybe it's something to do with that Java heap that was in there. So I can flip my view again and go into Java-oriented metrics and start pulling up details about things like heap utilization, heap usage by process, garbage collection counts. Is it Tomcat, is it Cassandra that's using up more of that memory? Where am I seeing those various details coming from? So basically kind of just going through a demo workflow of I have a Kubernetes application, I'm looking at generic Kubernetes details and telling me more and more about the various applications and namespaces, all the way down into the applications themselves and the application metrics to help figure out what's going on within that app. Am I experiencing CPU issues, memory issues, application-specific issues, kind of what's going on in that regard. Any thoughts on that, Lyle? Anything else I should expand on there?
No, I think in general, I 2 questions. If I'm an Azure Red Hat OpenShift customer, or if I'm an OpenShift customer on Azure, what are the things, the use cases that I would think of where I would want to use, like complement the stuff that's in Azure or OpenShift with Sysdig's tools? And then how do I get started?
Yeah, so a lot of that really comes down to the fact that OpenShift has a fairly good set of tools to monitor the host and what's going on in that regard. And Sysdig can really dig into the applications themselves that are running inside of that OpenShift cluster and give you context with all the various metadata coming in from the Kubernetes engine beneath that. So really, it's about I have an application. I want to be able to ensure that this thing is running well. I'm not having particular issues, or if I'm having issues, where are they happening at? And being able to leverage Sysdig to get you that deep level information out of Kubernetes to give you more info about what's happening in that environment. To get this set up, it's like we said, it's pretty simple. You saw that was a one-line command to be able to go and install that agent, and you can do all of that via the web. If you go to the Sysdig website, sysdig.com, you can click on a free trial right there and get that going and set all that stuff up out of the box.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alexander. I think we'll have a few more after this once we hit GA of ARO 4.3 here, and we've got some other scenarios for you guys to show off.
Sounds great. Yeah, we'd love to talk about runtime security and Kubernetes audit logs and all sorts of other stuff too.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Alexander, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.